In this lesson, we will identify three basic issues debated in drafting the Articles of Confederation and describe the political and economic problems faced by the Confederation. Continental Congress debates. While states developed their individual constitutions, the Continental Congress tried to draft one for the states as a whole. There were three basic questions that needed to be answered. The first was the issue of representation. Would there be representation by population or by state? The second is supreme power. Can supreme power be divided between two levels of government? And number three is, who gets the Western lands? The issue of representation. States were unequal in size and in wealth and in population. So the issue was, should each state get the same amount of representatives, or should states with larger populations have more representatives than states with smaller populations? The Continental Congress debated and decided that each state would have one vote, which would be equal representation for all of the states. Take a minute and pause the video and read through the comic that you see on the video screen to learn about how the Articles of Confederation started. The issue of supreme power. Can a government share power with states or provinces? Most people did not think that that would be possible. Congress proposes a new type of government in a set of laws that they called the Articles of Confederation. The Articles of Confederation outlined a government system where there were two levels of government. States are supreme in some matters, and the national government in other matters. And the new form of government was called a confederation or an alliance. The Articles of Confederation is the first constitution of the United States. Now, there were powers granted by the Articles of Confederation to the national government. The national government could raise armies, they could declare war, they could make peace, Congress could sign treaties, they had the ability to borrow money, set standards for weights and measures, and to establish a postal service. Powers that the national government did not have. They could not raise taxes to generate money to support the government. They could not regulate trade or collect tariffs. There was no executive branch to enforce the acts of Congress, and there was no court system to make laws. So there was no executive branch of the government and no legislative branch. There was only, no Supreme Court and no court system. There was only the legislative branch which made the laws. Who gets the Western lands? By 1779, 12 states had agreed to the Articles of Confederation, and Maryland was the only state that had not agreed. The reason why Maryland refused to sign was because other states in the United States had claims to Western lands. Maryland did not have any land claims to the Western lands and feared that larger states would overpower the smaller states. All states will eventually give up their Western land claims, and Maryland will be the final state to sign the Articles of Confederation in 1781. You can see here on the map that's titled Western Land Claims 1781 that a lot of the states had claimed land that extended to the Mississippi River. Maryland was landlocked and did not have that opportunity. So Maryland required that all of the additional land that you see in orange be returned to the United States before it agreed to the Articles of Confederation, and the United States would decide what to do with those lands. So, governing the Western lands, basically the Confederation Congress needed to decide how to govern those public lands that were west of the Appalachian Mountains and north of the Ohio River, seen here. Congress passes the Land Ordinance of 1765, which establishes a plan for surveying the land. Northwest Ordinance of 1787. This ordinance provided a procedure for dividing the Western lands into territories and states. There was a need to organize the Northwest Territory, which is seen here in this map in the areas that are shaded green. That is present-day Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and Michigan. It also set requirements for admission of new states, and there were 3 stages in this process. The first stage and the first requirement for a state to begin the process to be admitted to the Union is Congress appoints a territorial governor or judges. When the territory had 50,000 voting residents, they could write a temporary constitution and they could begin to elect their own government. When the total population of free settlers reached 60,000, a state constitution could be written and approved by Congress, and it could be then admitted into the United States as a state. The Northwest Ordinance set the process for new states to be admitted into the Union. If you look on the map here, you see the Northwest Territory that we just discussed. You can also see the details of the townships and how the land was divided. It was divided into townships of 36 square miles, and then each section was 1 square mile, 640 acres. So within one township, you had 36 individual sections that could be broken up into smaller areas of acres. The significance of the Land Ordinance and Northwest Ordinance is that they are the greatest achievements of the Articles of Confederation, and they establish a blueprint for the future growth of the nation. Take a moment and pause your video and read through the cartoon to see what the Northwest Ordinance of 1787 did and how it affected the United States. The Articles of Confederation had strengths and weaknesses. The achievements of the Articles of Confederation was that it established a fair policy for lands west of the Appalachian Mountains, the Land Ordinance and the Northwest Ordinance. It also created a peace treaty with Great Britain, which was signed in 1783, where Britain recognized American independence and enlarged the nation's boundaries. And it also set up departments of foreign affairs, war, marine, and treasury. The failures or weaknesses of the Articles of Confederation much outweighed the strengths. Congress did not have the power to levy or collect taxes, which means they could only raise money by borrowing or requesting money from states. They did not have the power to regulate trade. They could not force anyone to obey the laws or abide by the Articles of Confederation. They could only advise and request states to comply. 9 out of 13 states had to approve in order to pass any laws, which caused a lot of problems and made passing laws almost impossible. All the states had to agree to make an amendment, and the central government had no executive branch, so no unity in policy making and no way to coordinate work of the committees, and had no national court system, no judicial system, which made settling disputes very difficult. There were 13 separate states that lacked national unity.